Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. This is episode 4, video 4 of 5 in this ego shedding series. And the next video is more or less just going to be a recap to kind of go back through it all. But this one is all about your soul growth. Now, we've already unboxed the spiritual awakening. You've accepted, you've put down your armor, you've allowed yourself to be vulnerable, you've released people, you've questioned new things, you've really evaluated and you've replaced things. So now we're going to implement this as a whole. Okay, so this is where your soul growth is. This is where you're finally starting to achieve. It's taken me years to get there, but this is where I am. Okay, and this is where you're now implementing your newfound belief system. You're implementing more of what aligns with you. So what does that look like? Well, you've now started to rewrite those patterns. So everything in your life has been a pattern, toxic or not. So it has triggered this ego to go on high alert. And when that ego goes on high alert, that's not where you want to be. So now you have the tools. Now you're learning the coping strategies. You really stick with your boundaries. You respect people to where they are. You don't judge them. You're sending love and light even to people who have wronged you. You're releasing the need to be right. You're releasing that. So now this is where we are. This is the process. And again, you might be watching this video 10 years from when you first started watching the video series, and that's fine. It doesn't matter. But it's good. And I know as you're watching them in succession, you're like, oh my God, I want to get to that place. Yeah, well, guess what? There are zero shortcuts. You're not getting to this place, in the place where it's taken me years and years to get to, and I practice every day to maintain it. Every day, not every other day, every day to maintain it, because it's so easy to just fall back into old patterns, which is why you want to create these new ones. So in order to do that is to remember, going back to, I think in the first video where I said you have to be motivated, which I don't even like the word because it's not real, but inspired to do things. So even when things become easier, so now you're more confident, you've got your boundaries, you're doing all these things. Now that you're more confident, doesn't mean that you just forget to practice these daily things, because these are new patterns. So there will be people who are going to poke and prod you from time to time that will trigger certain things, right? But remember, we've already done some shadow work on this, and the triggers, you see them, you identify them, you understand that sometimes what they're doing is they're just manipulating you, and you can be manipulating other people. It doesn't mean that you're coming from a place of malicious intent. It just means that your ego is saying, I want to be satisfied. I'm right, and you need to make me happy. That's what your ego is saying. In turn, that now goes into manipulation. But once you've gotten to this place, you understand, hey, your feelings may be hurt. And again, that's your responsibility. Your emotions may be heightened. Different things are going to be thrown your way that you didn't expect. Absolutely. But how are you going to handle that? So you're at this place now where you realize that when somebody comes to you and they bring up some old thing that used to be a trigger for you, and you find yourself being triggered, this is where before you might just go off the deep end and start yelling and screaming and go, no, I'm not crazy, and da-da-da, you go through all that. Different now. Now you're like, okay, I clearly see that this person is trying to manipulate the situation to not better themselves, to fill that void, right? You don't judge that because they're in a different headspace, because guess what? You've been there too. Don't get extra. You've been there too. So when you're in that space of now incorporating this as a habit, this is where consistent 5 journals come into play. This is where you are always doing some kind of new learning. You are trying to inspire without inspiring, and you're being there to be like you're able to hear people. Only if they ask will you give feedback. You are actually in active listening now, where you're not worrying about how do I need to rush to respond. You're actually hearing what somebody else is saying to you. You're a part. It's like an empathetic type listening, but without adopting it of your own, like taking on their stuff. You don't have to be the martyr anymore. You now know this. You're not people pleasing now at this phase. You are knowing that you are your biggest priority, and you accept that you don't have to be in anybody else's. So now we're in that soul growth. Now this is all about rewriting an old pattern. So in order to do that, and it's actually, you probably realize at this phase that you've already been doing it, because these systems will come into play. Consider this your soul system. Okay, this is where you're incorporating what you've learned, understanding people are going to constantly try to trigger you, understand people are not going to like the things in what you're doing. And in that piece of it is where that growth lies. So your ego at this point, I might get a little mouthy, a little chattery, because it just might, right? It's a little brat. So sometimes you got to give it a little, a little chattery. You just kind of say, hey, you're safe. Like, remember, we don't have to be right. Like, we're good. So this is the system of acceptance. This is where you are letting things go. You're bothered by it. You're annoyed by it. You've processed it. You understand that it's not yours to change, even though you'd like for it to. And now you're able to release. So this is the phase where you're not holding on to the past here, because you understand that you only have today. So what I want to do in this next video is kind of give you a little exercise that you can do every single day. Just a little one, nothing crazy, but a little exercise that you can do every single day to keep that ego in check a little bit, right? Keep that ego death in place and allowing the healthier side of that ego to come. Because again, it's daily practice, and you will do this for the rest of your natural born life in order to change that factor. Because your brain isn't going to be like, oh, we already know what to do. No, it isn't. Because you have old, different systems, even though we've processed a lot of them at this point. So that's your big thing here, is to really work on incorporation. And like I said, in this next video, as we wrap up that series, I'm going to give you a little bit of an exercise that you can do every single day that's going to really help you. And, like I said, individually, it's a little different. I'm going to do a podcast on this and go a lot deeper on it on the Patreon for the people who have subscribed to the Patreon. Just kind of go deeper. So this one exercise I'm giving you, there's like many more to come into that. But always know that you're always going to be a work in progress. Always. And remember, on that journey, now look back to where you were. Look back to when you started this ego journey and look at your improvements, because very often you forget to celebrate yourself. You're looking at, I need to do this. I still need to do this. Why do I keep doing this? I fell backwards. Oh my God. Okay. Hard pass. We're going to sit there and we're going to appreciate you. So right now we're going to celebrate you, understanding that this will always be a challenge, but we're here now. Doesn't matter where you came from, matters where you are right now. And this is progress, not perfection. So congratulations, right? Like, you're finally at this space that you've been seeking most of your life, but you don't do it with an expectation. If you're still in expectation, you're still in your ego. You want to go back and redo and keep redoing as much as needed. It's something I have to do frequently, right? And just remember, just because things crop up, you're also a human. You're not a drone. You're going to have emotional ties at times, so you want to process them. It's not feeling it. It's actually quite the opposite. It's feeling it. It's my watch is talking. It's feeling it. It's getting you in the space, but you got to feel it and then release it, because now we're at the phase where you should be at that space where you can release a lot easier. So that's that. And now we're going to jump into an exercise that you can do in this next video that's going to help you just kind of stay grounded and really solidify your practice. So congratulations. Like, here you are. Remember, you're not going to be perfect. You will slide back. Not might, you will. It's going to happen. But you have way more tools now. So now when you go back to old toxic thought patterns and belief systems and ecosystems, you go, oh, I see what I'm doing here. Now, no judgment, awareness. So now you're at that place where you know who you are a hell of a lot better, and I'm here for it.